special meeting of the Old Saybrook Water Pollution Control Authority on Monday, March 2nd, 7 p.m. in the middle school auditorium. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
I shall. Elsa Payne, Chairman.
Present.
Ian Featherstone, Vice Chairman.
Present.
George D. Gwiz, Secretary, present. Chuck Worley.
Present.
John F. Claffey, Jr.
Present.
Jason Becker.
Present.
Robert Marcel. Absent. Peter Stump, alternate. Absent. And Robert Zenger, alternate.
Present.
Roll call has been taken, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Sanger, you'll be seated for the absence. Okay, if we all stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
One thing I interrupted, this is not on here, but do we approve the?
No.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the WWMD benefit assessment public hearing. And the purpose of this public hearing is to provide public input into the proposed benefit assessments that are levied on the upgraded properties to pay back the loan portion of the funding that the town of Old Saybrook has received. More specifically, tonight's hearing pertains to one, construction costs on the recently completed properties, and two, engineering and health district costs directly associated with the construction that's to be shared by all properties that were upgraded in phase one. Ian would like to talk to that.
Okay, we have a couple of things on tonight. The hard construction costs, as we call them, those are the costs associated with actual installation of a system. There's a few homeowners who are listed as, Gracia, approximately how many? 25, 30? About 30 homeowners who are being assessed this evening, or proposed assessment this evening. That's fairly straightforward. Those that are involved in the program know what's involved in that. That's the actual costs of construction and the Old Saybrook WPCA's effort to levy the benefit assessment to those homeowners. The second part is on the construction management costs. Now what we're going to do, I'm going to just run through a few things on this to put a little background to it, bring us up to where we are, and then we will open it up for questions or comments. And we'll do our absolute best to answer those. So today we have on construction management costs, we started off with the total program cost for phase one, about $6.827 million. That was everything. Of that, we have about $3,676,000 are hard construction costs, which is the cost of putting systems in the ground. Then we have $3,150,000, which is construction management. Or actually, what we'll call those at this point, we're trying to remove this from our vocabulary, but those are soft costs. Those are everything. So when that number was divided out among all the 314 or so property owners, that was $5,017 to each property owner. That was their share because it was actually just a little over $10,000 total cost to each one. So over the past couple of years, as we've gone through this process, we've had a lot of public comment and a lot of really good input from a lot of folks in this room and the staff who've done an awful lot of work on this, and the board who have really put a lot of effort into this. Please keep in mind it is all volunteer. The board, staff is obviously staff. But we tried to listen. We really did try to listen and really did try to take into account all of the points raised to make this as fair as possible. for the property owners in phase one, and just as importantly, for those in future phases. Because if, for example, there were no costs attributed to construction management for phase one, we're only a fifth of the way through the project. What do we do with the rest of it? We've set a precedent that says we will not levy any benefits to anybody, and that could get out of control in a hurry, and that's not fair to all taxpayers. So we are trying to balance this between what's fair to each individual property owner and all taxpayers in the town of Old Saybrook. So what we've come up with, we put costs in different areas, things that should be charged to the homeowners under this construction management cost, and things that should be charged off to all taxpayers to get this program going, because there is a benefit to all taxpayers, whether you're in the WWMD or not. So the typical examples, some examples, things that are charged to the homeowners: lot mapping, the system design, permit fees. Those are things that you'd have to do regardless. The costs we looked at to take out of the program: research costs for just getting the program going, everything that was involved in starting this thing up from day one. Rebids, if there was a technical problem, technical specification incorrect, and we had to put it out to rebid, and there was one of those, I think, maybe one or two. That's not a cost that should be borne by the people in the district. Public education, getting out the word. What are we doing? How are we doing it? All the pre-design costs, everything involved before we're actually designing systems to go in the ground. The double engineered plan cost, and that was, that really was a point that was brought up a number of times. There were the early phase, the early sections that had to be done twice. It was a requirement of the program. This is a new program, it hasn't been done before, and the thought was, we'll make sure that we can't direct these bids to any one vendor, so we're going to make sure there's two designs for every property. We were able to eliminate that through the work of the staff early on in the program. So it didn't seem right to charge only those homeowners in the first couple of contracts, to charge them when nobody else had to pay them. So we took those costs out. Legal costs for the contracts, and the bidding, that was taken out. The enforcement costs for those that didn't comply or to get people to comply, that was taken out. Any other legal costs not directly related to system installation was taken out. And then any other health district costs not related to installation was also taken out. So at the end of the day, we ended up with taking the $3,150,000, round numbers. We took out $865,000 in engineering costs. We took out $607,000 in legal costs. We took out $39,000 in costs of the health district, CRAD, and we took out $1,026,000 for the WPCA administration. That left construction management costs after all of this of $612,000, of which the homeowner share is 50% of that, $306,000. Divide that by the 314 properties, and that brings us to where we are today with a construction management benefit assessment of $975 per property owner in phase one. So we tried to go about this as fairly as possible, listening to comment, making sure we took into account all these costs that didn't belong in there, because there was some presentations that were made initially that showed these things would not be borne by the property owners. So we listened, we took those out, and this is where we are. And at this point, what we'll do is we'll open up the floor for any questions or comments. There is a microphone over there right behind the camera. If anybody would like to speak, make a comment, etc., please step up to the microphone.
You step with that one as well, can't you?
That's all right, you go.
Did I miss it?
smooth drive. And basically, I did want to discuss all of the fact sheets and slideshows and presentations that we went to convince us all that this was the way to go. And one of the bullets that you were going through some bullets about, you know, all the different things that you had to pay for. I had to chuckle when you said education. You know, you had to educate the town. Well, you didn't educate the town. You threw a lot of propaganda at the town because nobody wanted sewers. And you didn't want the other taxpayers or the town to have those costs. Well, now it's all done. We've all had our yards dug up. I paid way more for a septic that I've had to have people come back more than once because it keeps coming back up. And I can see it, or I hit it with my spade trying to plant a geranium. And now you want to throw another $1,000 onto it. I'm not going to pay it, okay? Period.
I also feel very dissatisfied with you asking for administrative costs to be paid, because in my particular case, I was stonewalled, I was humiliated, my driveway has not been repaired to the specifications that are written in the chairman's response. Finally, why should I pay for incompetence in management when you haven't finished my particular piece of property? I feel the same way. I do not feel like paying administrative costs. I'm dissatisfied. You're not done.
I'm going to speak from here. I think you can hear me, right?
We can hear you, but I'm not sure the people behind you can.
Sir, speak right up, that's fine.
How many people are involved in this originally? The numbers you said is 300
314 property owners.
on phase 1, you said?
Yes.
What is phase 2?
Phase 2?
Why do you call it phase 1? What's coming next? Or how?
No, it's,
There's approximately 1,800 total properties in the wastewater management district.
How many?
1,800.
Okay, now how do we get 300 then?
That was the first group.
So we're paying for all that. Now, how about the rest of the people that have to have it done?
These are the costs associated with the construction management costs of the first group only.
See, they
All of
didn't
the
have it
other
figured out
costs.
yet.
You didn't have it figured out, right?
They
We
didn't know what they
didn't
were
know
doing.
anything, sir. All
Administering
of
a
you.
plan without a plan to administer.
Exactly.
Excuse me, one at a time.
One.
We didn't have it. All we had was an estimate how much it's going to cost, and we got the figures that said
And black and white, you
in
would
black
pay
and white.
100%
And then
construction
all of a
management.
sudden, you got all these other costs. You threw out a figure of $5,000. I almost had a heart attack. Thousands enough when you're on a fixed income.
Numbers could be anything, it doesn't matter.
If you're referring to the documents that were put out during the public education, those are
Just
slides.
public propaganda, yes.
Okay. Those list the costs that will be part of the homeowner's responsibility.
No.
They do.
Well,
They do.
I would like you to point that out in the fact sheet and the slideshow.
It is-
I have
it's
everything I
slide-
received.
It's on slides number, I think it's, let's see, slide number 30.
Okay, I'll go through them if other people would like to talk, and then we can go over that aside. I don't want to break up the meeting. Because I went through these again,
Okay.
and there was nothing in there that did
Not
not
yet.
say construction costs would be 100% the town. And that's what the rest of the town is going to have to bear the burden of. Now all of a sudden the rest of the town's going, you ain't raising my taxes, you
It's
know?
already been raised.
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
all right, let's
One
go back
other
to
thing.
one at a time, yeah.
When people go out to bid on a job, it's the whole job is bid on, and that includes all the engineering and everything else. How come that wasn't figured out front? You had no other data to work on?
This program has never been done before in the state of Connecticut,
Well, then we're paying for all of you to educate yourselves.
which is why we took all those costs of learning out of it. And when you look at this, this has been reduced from the $5,000 down to $975.
That's a lot of money, $5,000.
Keep in mind that that money has been transferred over to the general taxpayer. It's not just disappeared. It is being borne by all taxpayers in the town. Because that is the cost and the benefit to those that are not in the district of not having a central treatment plant.
It's a benefit to them.
It's a benefit.
I think we should have put up a plant would have 3,000 about, and then we could do it right. This is not fair to come up with an engineering cost after the job is done and a whole year later. Go ahead, sir.
Can I just make a comment? Those engineering costs have been ongoing for the entire project. We have paid engineering bills from day one. They didn't just start and we didn't come up with the money 2 weeks ago. Those costs have been ongoing for the whole project since day one, which started about 5 years ago.
Right, that's okay, but how do we know that these are bona fide costs? We don't have no, all we have is the input, how much you're gonna pay for. That's all we have, the input, plus all the things that come out. Could you explain this?
Did we send out anything? We went out.
We've had a number of meetings and including a workshop recently that went through all of the costs, and we went through a lot of things. I just summarized them very quickly with what they were, but the total amounts that were taken out, I know I went through them quickly, but we took out the $865,000 worth of engineering costs to get the program started because we did not feel they were attributable to the homeowners in phase one. But there is some cost left. That is, for example, designing a system. That's a cost that you'd have to pay one way or another. But it's a fairly small component of it. In the end of the day, we reduced the homeowner's responsibility from the $5,017 and reduced it to $975. And we have reviewed all of these costs and categories. I think Gracia is available if you want to go through them line by line.
Excuse me, I tried to do that, and I was told it's none of my
Excuse me?
business.
One at a
Mr.
time.
One
Thompson.
at a time.
You can't get a
Yes,
breakdown.
one at a time.
You can't get a breakdown because they don't
Is
have
this
one.
gentleman
They
finished?
don't have a breakdown of costs for you.
Are you finished? Or?
What am I gonna do? I can't do anything.
Okay.
You would pay the bills, go to jail or something. I mean, you know, you gotta be fair about this whole thing, but it's too late now. I thought it would be a reasonable cost, and that should be for all of the homeowners that have to do it, the ones that aren't even done yet. We're paying for all that up front. We don't know if it's gonna be a.
No, that's not
900.
true. You're only paying for your property costs. You're not paying for anyone else's.
Well, if I wanted to go into it and say, oh, I got the breakdown of the cost and I removed the septic tank, it was just paved in, I got a lot of other issues I should have fought for. But this is done the wrong way. Never been done before. And it's not
Can I-
fair to the
can I make a
people that are in here, and it really isn't.
Okay. All the numbers that you're talking about and that someone else mentioned, they're all public documents. You have access to all of those documents. Every one of those numbers was gone over in public meetings. There are minutes to those meetings. You can get all of the documents that show the costs. So they're all available to you. I mean, they're not being hidden. All of this is transpired in public meetings. So everything is available to you if you want to get it. What Ian said to you is that all the things that you're upset about have been removed from the costs. So what is left is $975, your share of it. We removed,
For the entire project, or is that per year?
well, that is for phase two.
Phase one.
Phase one. A certain amount of that was engineering costs and project startup costs that are going to go over to phase two and phase three. There's 2 more phases left to do. So that's why you're not paying them for your share. they're going to be carried over to phase 2 and phase 3. The largest share is going to be borne by the taxpayer the taxpayers of this town, all of the taxpayers for phase 1. All that learning process, the vast majority of it is going to be paid for by the taxpayers of the town. Basically, what was said in that first presentation.
All right, sir, the other point I'd like to add, the $975, that proposed assessment is payable over 20 years.
That makes a big difference, even though I still think the thing wasn't done correctly. When I bid jobs, I bid the whole job. If I got the job fine, I paid whatever it was. It's very tough for people to stay up with all these meetings and everything. It really is.
Do you have a list of the costs that came to 5,000 that we're paying for, that was then divided?
Yes. Those are the costs that I read off. I know I read them very quickly.
Yeah, just what we're paying for.
Just what you're paying for.
Just what we're paying for. Can you tell me what those items are? I'm sorry to make you forget, but I think you can go through them quickly. What makes up that $5,000?
No, that's
Was
two
it
different
5,000
things.
divided
No,
by-
no, you're not paying 5,000.
You're not paying the
No,
5,000.
okay, I'm paying $975 times phase 1 homeowners equals what?
That total amount is $306,000.
Oh, $306,000. Can you tell me what that is made out of?
That is made of engineering costs associated with getting systems in the ground, for example.
Well, just engineering costs is fine.
Right.
Because
Then
that was
there
total
are
100% covered.
right,
That's fine.
contract administration, the bids, getting putting the bids out, actually putting the bids
Basically,
out.
is it all construction management?
Pretty much.
And
Yes.
permit
Which
fees.
was,
And permit fees.
right. Well, how much is a permit fee? Isn't it like $275?
Inspection as well,
And inspection.
Inspection.
Brad, inspection.
Because I haven't been able to find that slide, and I'm just wondering what these itemized things would have, cost me if I had done this myself.
Right. I think what you're seeing is a little bit of a terminology. The slide that says 100%
Well,
of.
it's been terminology since we took the
Correct.
vote.
And what we
Years
did,
ago.
right, but what we did, the costs that are left in here, the costs that are attributable to the phase 1 property owners, the 314 property owners, are costs only associated with getting a system in the ground. They are not related to
Right, which is
all the
why I
other
wanted
costs
them
of
itemized.
running this program.
Which is-
That's something that Gracia could provide for you.
Okay, I could follow up with you
Yes.
later, Gracia, I guess.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Would you like to speak?
I would. To see you, Chairman Payne, sit there when my better half speaks about a driveway and shake your head like she's nuts. It's wrong. The driveway has not been fixed. Handshakes from you, the vice chair, others on the board, worthless. Signatures on paper from you saying that that was damaged, still not fixed. Worthless. This bill of $975, wonderful, you whittled it down. We have more damage on the personal level to our driveway that you have not fixed. That's why she does not want to pay the money. Of course, we're obligated to pay it. We're under your thumb. Again, our open credit card and a gun to our head. You're not done with the job. 2 years. 2 years ago, the contractor was running around on the property without an access letter. That's how it all started. You got off on the wrong foot. You're still administering a plan without a plan to administer. I could go on forever. I'm very disgusted with this board. Poor politics. Thank you.
I have a question. The engineering costs, I thought that the engineering was done by the contractor on some of the properties. Is that correct? That we didn't have it.
No, they hired their own engineer.
What's that?
Yeah, they hired their own engineer, the contractor, in some cases.
Well, I remember getting something that they were letting the contractors do the system design because they can do it.
No, but they have to have,
That is correct.
if
That is
they're
correct.
qualified.
The installer, that was the change that was made. The installer was allowed to design the system to avoid the cost of having the engineers design the system.
Exactly, right.
And those are costs for those systems that had the engineer designs that we took out of this assessment.
So
Those
what
were
is
taken
the
out.
system design cost that we are paying for then? What's
Okay.
that?
For example, there is a flight that is done, a flyover and a mapping of all the properties. And one of the engineering costs that applies to all is determining where property boundaries are so that the installer can know where to put the system and know where his setbacks are. And that has to be done so he knows where not to install a system.
Okay.
And that cost is attributable to the homeowner. It would be the same as if you had to go get a surveyor, mark your property boundaries so that you didn't
But it's
encroach
really
on your
not-
neighbor.
It's
So-
really not surveyed though.
Right.
They're just looking at the property and saying, just
Can I
put
make a
here.
comment?
No, yeah, you can, but no, they actually mapped out every property and provided a map of all the lots of where the boundaries were so that the installers knew where to install the system. That cost is one of the costs that is attributable to the homeowners in this.
I just want to make a technical comment on that. The new technology that they use for mapping properties saves you a ton of money. It's all done by flyovers, by satellite data. If you had to have a surveyor come in and survey every property, it would cost a lot more money than what you're paying for now. A lot of this is brand new technology, just been around for a few years, all done with pictures, flyovers, and satellite data.
So why weren't we billed, I know you said, like, don't you know, you knew how much it was costing per property, right? Didn't you know then, it costs this much to map a piece of property? So why is it getting divided by all the properties?
Because the final costs weren't tallied until all the properties were completed.
So what if phase 2, people are only paying $600, then, and we have to pay $975, how's that gonna work? Right? You don't know what phase 2, but you're gonna charge them, right?
correct.
It could
No.
be more, it could be a lot less.
Doubtful.
And is that because of phase 1, where it costs more because it's new?
That's right.
I mean, that's all possible, but they're going to be paying for the same mapping that you did. We did not, you guys did not pay for mapping for anything more than your properties. You didn't pay for mapping for anything in any of the other properties. The next couple of the next properties, one of them is Maple Avenue North. That's ongoing right now. You didn't pay for that. Pardon me?
Shouldn't everybody have to pay $975 then?
It could be more. I mean, phase 2 is going to be totally different. We have waterfront properties. We have properties in severe conditions. It's going to be totally different than phase 1. Phase 1 was all conventional systems. Phase 2 is going to be a lot different. Costs are going to be different.
More difficult.
And the projects are going to be more difficult. So,
A lot of it is because it's getting divided by everybody's property, and who knows if each one costs the same for what was done.
and that's basically why for phase 1, we took out everything that is attributable to anything in the future or in the past, and only included the cost to your property. There are no other, we didn't make these numbers up. There are no other numbers out there where other people are paying for you or you're paying for someone else. That's why we took a year and a half to figure out how to do this right.
Just a
Go ahead.
clarification, if you can, on this point, and that is, you said you flew the area and took the property lines off of that, and you then divided by 1,800? 114.
They're done in sections.
Why?
Well, the flights are done in sections.
No, they're not.
They are.
Yes, they are.
Yes, they are.
They were.
Okay, thank you. And I have another question if I can. I'm actually in phase 2, and I'm concerned that, well, the direct question is, what management changes, what administrative changes have you guys put in place to lower the administrative costs to meet? For example, my understanding, and I didn't observe this, my understanding is we had a full-time town inspector on site while the systems were being put in place. That's unheard of in the construction business. Have you done anything to change that aspect of it? So that's one. Engineering costs at, well, I'll call them overhead because that includes all of the engineering, legal, health district, and that at about 80% of construction costs is also unheard of in the construction business. And I'm wondering what mechanisms, what measures have you guys put in place so that this man can do his job more efficiently?
Can I try to answer that?
Okay.
Okay. What happens in phase 2 is open to you. I don't think we want to answer that tonight. Phase 2 is the next thing. We have public meetings every 2 weeks. You are welcome to attend any one of those public meetings and voice your opinion about how we manage the property going forward. That's probably the right forum for that question. I'm not sure that it is the right forum for tonight. Tonight we're talking about assessing properties that were done in phase 1. Nothing on the agenda really for phase 2.
With all due respect, this goes to the assessment during phase 1 as well. If there were inefficiencies inherent, if there were nepotism inherent in the system that caused the price to go up, these people in phase 1 ought to know that. And those costs associated with that inefficiency should be taken out, like you took out the inefficiency of the board, like you took out the inefficiency of the whole town learning this process.
Oh, okay.
If you go back and look how the management of phase 1 occurred and say there was not a good management scheme that we had in place for the first year and a half of this project.
I think I can answer that.
Go ahead.
The process that we went through on phase 1 to remove these costs, because we did not feel they were attributable to the homeowners, is the same process we will use for all future phases. The costs that the phase 2, phase 3, phase 4 homeowners will pay will be strictly those related to getting a system in the ground. That's what we have done. We have set that precedent so that all other costs are borne by the taxpayers, the whole taxpayer
We're
base.
all taxpayers of the town also.
Correct. Correct.
So we're bearing
But it's a much smaller
portion of
piece.
that.
It's a much smaller piece when you
But
take
we're still bearing that cost, and there's a phase 5 and phase 6, phase 7 and 8 still to come that we're not talking about.
phase 4. But
Well, there's 5 and 6 and 7 and 8. So,
no, just 4.
Well, you show me the hydrology that says the house across the street
Right.
from mine doesn't need to be done, and it's lower and closer to the sound. Then you can tell me there's not going to be a phase 5 and 6 and 7.
That's a fair point. There may be further costs in the future. We can't predict that.
But again, my question is, we've now had 2 years worth of experience observing the process. You hired Steve, that's fantastic. What else have you done as a board to reduce the cost of this program?
I believe
I mean, let's face it,
the engineering costs are part of the
$607,000 worth
amendment.
of legal expenses is an enormous amount of money for a project this size.
engineering cost per property, and they're right in around $1,100.
What's this there?
Is one of the amendments to the Fuss and O'Neill contract, does that determine the cost of engineering per property?
Yes, it's more of a
Yes,
fixed
yeah.
price.
Right.
We're just having a little discussion.
Yeah, and we don't have a list for you, Robert, but one of the things that we did do in the next, renewal of an engineering agreement, we now have more fixed costs than we had in the past. But, maybe that's something I will think about, enumerating for a future hearing.
Thank you.
I think,
People who haven't asked questions.
Yeah, we'll let someone who hasn't spoken yet speak first, if there's anyone. Yes, ma'am?
Are the original 314 homeowners going to get tax exemptions because they are paying their taxes and paying their bill up front? Because we will be double taxed on this if not. And going forward, the 1,800 property owners, are they going to get a tax exemption as well?
I'm not aware of any tax exemptions.
And you should discuss it and come up with a formula so that these 1,800 properties don't double pay.
the properties, the benefit assessment for the properties, the construction management cost is one thing. The remainder of the costs are spread among the entire tax base, and that includes everybody, and everybody has to pay those as well. It's not an exemption. There's a benefit assessment cost, and then it's not a double tax. It's just, no, you're not. You're paying it once. You're paying it once. You're paying the cost of construction in a benefit assessment. Then you're paying a tax portion, just like everybody else, for a sewer avoidance.
So if your numbers are correct, and I'm just really going very quickly back to the envelope stuff, taking out the 612 that is attributed to the construction management, that leaves about $2.5 million worth of construction management overhead costs.
That's correct.
Divided by 10,000 people in town, that's about $250 each for phase one.
That's 100%, 50%.
So 50% of that's going to come out of
But remember, that's going into the total cost of the program. That is not paid in 1 year. That could be paid over the entire cost of the program, over 20 years.
still $250.
Right, over 20 years total.
So it's about another $1,000 if this is phase one, and the other one. So that's $1,000 to our 20-year tax burden per resident of town. Again, very, very round numbers.
No, I don't come up with that number. Okay.
I applaud you for making the efforts that you have. My question is with regards to those folks that have a 1,500 gallon or $1,500 septic tank only installed, and they're being charged $975. Did you make any kind of provisions for those folks that only needed a tank and the tank's $1,500 and you're going to give them $975 and management fees now?
No, I don't think we did, and
We did not make any provision for that because that would open up an entire new discussion of why does this one get something and this one not get something. So what we did, to make it fair, we took all cost out of it, divided by all property owners in that phase one, and applied a flat cost of $975 to all.
and that $975, that property, even if it only needed a septic tank, still needed to be mapped, still needed to be administered in the part of the program. So there's not a real good reason to leave those out or to have a different cost for that part of the.
And one more thing on that, because had we come up with a formula that applied a percentage, if we did that, and there's a couple of you sitting here that had very expensive systems. If we applied a percentage, it would have made yours a lot worse. And that didn't seem right either. So the board weighed all that up. And when we looked at those that have spoken and said, $35,000 system, $38,000 system, how would that be fair to put another $4,000 on yours? It wouldn't be. Because as Bob just said, the cost is the cost of those things that were done.
Hi, Jack Cardella, 2 Deerfield Road. Ian and most of the board know who I am, and he just mentioned. My total cost 2 years ago came to a public hearing here where I received the benefit assessment for $38,600 for a 4-bedroom home, traditional septic system, not an advanced treatment system or anything of the sort. Currently, my wife and I are paying roughly a little bit more than $16,000 in what is referred to as construction costs. I do see, and I do commend the board for coming to a decision, I do see this as the first good faith attempt at the WPCA board making a compromise in favor of some of the individuals, not necessarily everyone, I don't speak for myself, some of the individuals that are impacted by this. My question is, why was this common sense and good faith effort not made when working with these incredibly and obviously over-the-top construction costs?
I don't understand.
Why didn't you use the same good faith efforts and common sense when you looked at people who got obviously charged way more than they should have? And the individuals from the board even mentioned that it was unfair. It was part of the learning curve. You made the corrections in the soft costs. Why was the same common sense and good faith effort not made when talking about construction costs?
All the bills that we got from our contractors were reviewed and they were deemed in accordance with what our contract was. We made adjustments. We did make adjustments to hard costs where there were errors or where we felt we had, the contractor did not do what they were supposed to. So that's all I can say on that.
But I think his point is, we all paid a lot of money for septic systems that would not have cost us so much if we had done it ourselves, and now you're tacking more on.
Well, I guess my point is, and I do admit that these soft costs that you've come to the number for myself, and I saw you looking my way when you talked about percentages and such. I do see that as the first good faith effort to come to a compromise. I went through several meetings and about 18 months worth of conversations and paperwork and such with staff members of the WPCA as well as board members. And it was clear that I was being overcharged by the first company that was a part of this process that received the first bid. Yet there was never any good faith effort made to come to a compromise. And that's what disappoints me, and I'm perplexed because I've never gotten an answer. Why was not the same approach of good faith and compromise applied to the construction costs?
First of all, I'd like to thank you for supporting the soft cost assessment that we did make a big effort on that, and it was in good faith, as you said. There's a couple things here. One is you're in litigation with this.
No, and I'd like to mention that if I may, since you brought it up, I'd like to just comment on that. I'd like to make it a matter of public record that everyone know that my wife and I did file an appeal. We've since had to withdraw that appeal because, as we understand it, the law firm that was hired by our first selectman, which is, as I understand, different than Shipman and Goodwin, is that correct?
Correct.
It's not Shipman and Goodwin?
Correct. It is.
Essentially, rather than, again, acting in good faith and coming to a compromise, simply drew out and has so far, and up to the point where we withdrew in December, taken every action to make the process more costly for myself and my wife, to a point where we no longer could afford the legal process of the appeal, because simply it would have cost us more to go through all of the legal steps and all of the depositions and everything else. It would have cost us more to do that than we would have actually gained as a benefit. So again, it's the first selectman who's a public servant hiring his own law firm against my wife and I, and not only unwilling to compromise and use common sense, but actually intentionally making it more difficult for us to be treated fairly.
The appeals process is not the town's appeal process. You're appealing to the state, aren't
Did you see that?
No, we're appealing to the town of Old Saybrook. That was the appeal. That was on the documents that we signed originally. And Carl Ford came in and hired a law firm
Okay, well then I'm not
to deal
aware.
with this appeal. It's just, I'm just making
I
it
thought
better.
you were appealing the health district.
No, we were
Okay.
appealing the construction costs because
Okay, well
they
I'm not
were
aware of that.
exorbitant. And I just wanted to make it known that this is the first, like I said, good faith effort. And I just don't understand why good faith was not used and implemented. As Ian and others have mentioned, this is, in the beginning, was a process at a huge learning curve. And why good faith was not utilized in the construction costs as well as the soft costs. And I guess I'm just making a statement there and saying that I'm just tremendously disappointed in that.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak?
Question regarding phase one also, please.
No.
Are there any AT systems done in phase one? Or were they all SSDS systems that phase one is done?
Your second statement is correct.
Good, because if there were any AT systems in phase one, I'd be afraid down the road there would be what a phase one cost to the people in WWMDs. And that wouldn't be fair. So I'm glad to hear you say it's entirely closed out. You're done with bills for the WPCA?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I guess in all fairness, you'd like to hear from me, seeing we've been in every meeting together for a long time. I think you've done a good effort to get where you are with the numbers. A lot of you weren't on the board when it started. I think you were handed a ball of wax out there, and you really got a tough position to be in. It's unfortunate that my position still is, we shouldn't be paying for that. We should pay half of the design and construction. That was what was sold to the town. That's what the $42 million bond was for. That hasn't happened. It probably won't happen. And like Jack said up there, they're going to make it hard for anybody to go legally. So if anybody were going to do anything legally, if they didn't like the soft costs or like anything about the program, they'd have to get the whole 1,900 to go after you because you're going to make it hard legally to go get them. Now, it's going to cost me more than I'm going to get back, and I'm in litigation as well. But so be it. Some things are just fair. And that wasn't fair, and I'm not blaming anybody on this board, but that's the way the program was rolled out. You guys weren't probably on the board when it got rolled out. I don't know, you might have been also, but I don't know anybody else, George. But it's not fair to the people to sell us one thing, give us something else, then put us in litigation. But I thank you for your efforts. I mean, to pay that money and get away from it all, it's okay. I'll get away with it, but don't come back for any more.
With that, I'll close the public hearing and move on to discussion of
Before you close that,
of the,
are you going to be able to point out what those costs were on that slide number that we were responsible for? Maybe the slide number.
No, you'll have to follow up
Oh.
separately.
so we're moving on to discussion on hard cost benefit assessments. Does anyone on the board have anything to have any concerns or of the costs that we're about to proposing?
I have no
They're on that memorandum dated, what, March 2nd? For all the properties that are on that memorandum. Does anyone have any comments or
I don't.
concerns?
No, these are very straightforward.
Please take the microphone and hold it so that we can hear you, because we can't. Thank you.
Doing my best.
Every time you turn your head, I'll see your voice goes left or right. We
Yeah.
can't hear you. Seriously.
Come on.
And you're moving closer to you.
All right, Jason, do you have anything?
No, nothing.
Do you have anything?
All set.
All right, you all set? Chuck?
I'm also.
You all set?
I'm fine.
All right, then do I have a motion?
For what? We didn't hear that.
You can make a motion. I'll read it.
Someone please make a motion.
I'll make a motion to levy the hard cost benefit assessment on the properties listed in a memorandum to Sarah Becker, Old Saybrook Town Clerk, from Gracia Lewis, WPCA Financial Manager, dated March 2nd, 2015, subject hard cost benefit assessments.
I'll second that.
Okay, is there any further comment on that? Does anyone understand the motion?
I'm not sure it was heard. Jason, maybe you want to go up to the microphone and read it.
It wasn't heard? Oh, I'm sorry. I'll make a motion to levy the hard construction cost benefit assessments on the properties listed in a memorandum to Sarah Becker, Old Saybrook Town Clerk, from Gracia Lewis, WPCA Financial Manager, dated March 2nd, 2015, subject hard cost benefit assessments.
I'll second that motion.
Before you close, when is this coming out?
Excuse me, I will second that motion. Go ahead, sir.
No, you can't comment.
There's no public comment at this point.
But the list is public information.
That's correct.
All right, or,
One quick thing. Gracia, Robbie, these benefit assessments have been mailed out to everybody on this list, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
as proposed.
As proposed. And they received a letter that showed those costs. I think you gave me one,
Yes,
breakdown.
a breakdown.
yes,
Okay. All right.
yes.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Abstain.
I'm abstaining.
Oh, no, he's abstaining.
Okay.
I don't have to this time.
2 abstentions?
Yes. Don't need to be one, but that's okay.
Okay. Okay, the next item is a discussion on the construction management benefit assessment. We are talking about the proposed $975 for all
Slow down, yeah.
phase 1.
Okay.
No, I strongly support the $975 assessment to each property. I think that the board went through a great deal of discussion and really deliberated over this issue, and I think that it's a fair assessment for all the properties in phase 1.
Okay, I also agree, obviously, I'm not going to repeat all the numbers I've gone through, but I think the board has taken into account all of the input that was presented to us. We've listened. A couple of comments that came up tonight. We do have meetings every 2 weeks approximately. Please come, share your thoughts with us. This is where we get the information from.
You want to say anything? Anyone else want to say anything?
Comments?
We spent a long time on this, so I think we pretty much said it all.
All right, I'll
Can I make a motion, please?
Sure. I'd like to make a motion to levy the construction management cost benefit assessment on the properties listed in a memorandum to Sarah Becker, Old Saybrook Town Clerk, from Gracia Lewis, WPCA Financial Manager, dated March 2nd, 2015, the subject construction management cost benefit assessments.
Second.
Any further comment or discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Abstain.
Two abstentions. Okay. Moving on to staff reports. Is there anything?
Good evening, I'm Steve Mongillo, I'm Program Manager for the WPCA, for those folks that may not have met me yet. If you have, I've been listening to all the comments, if you have questions, any issues that still remain, please come to us. The staff and myself can provide you with, I think, a lot of helpful information judging by what I heard tonight, and we'll do everything that we can to help you with your specific situation. I wanted to let the board know, since the last meeting, the scope of work that Wright Pierce was working on was delivered to DEP as a draft. They reviewed it, they got it back to Wright Pierce, and that's where it is right now. So I'm hoping that very quickly we'll get it so that we can bring this to the board as soon as possible for review. But other than that, there hasn't been much that's happened in the last few days. So that's where we are.
Thank you. Moving on, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So made.
I'll second.
Okay.
7:57 p.m.
7:57.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?